Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who are lending this truth from whom to well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm going to entitle this one, The Elect Are Clocked Out of This World. Going into how the elect of the nation of Israel, which are the ones who are going to be delivered, who are going to be saved by who everybody ignorantly calls Christ, which his real name is Yahushua in ancient Paleo-Hebrew, which means he delivers. He's not coming to save the whole world like these Christians love to push that whole John 3:16 that God loves everybody. No. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, the powers of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his descendants, they're only the powers of the nation of Israel, which today would comprise of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and the Israelite foreigners that are going to come looking like all these different nations, so-called Chinese, so-called white, but their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And ultimately, the whole nation of Israel is not going to make it on this side. It's not going to be another Exodus and every single Israelite being delivered out of Egypt. No, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is ultimately only going to deliver the elect, the remnant, the 144,000, to depart from this world, in a sense, detaching themselves mentally, spiritually from this place, and even, in a sense, physically, not partaking with the wicked lust of the flesh that these 2/3 Israelites love to consume. It says, for this is not your rest because it is polluted. Once you come into the truth, to the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, you see that this world is wicked, it's being ran in wickedness. And that's when that Proverbs 29 and verse 2 comes in. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. Everybody's mourning right now, but the 2/3 of our people and these heathens, they can't put their finger on it of what this earth needs. It needs a righteous rulership. It needs the correct nation in power, which is going to be the nation of Israel, starting with Yahushua, the 144,000 that are going to be ruling upon the planet Earth. That's when the earth is finally going to be cleansed from all this pollution, literally and symbolically, with the whole, right now you got the chemtrails being sprayed, the waters are polluted with fluoride and all these different chemicals, these forever chemicals that are affecting humanity as a whole. You even got the Edomites drinking this polluted ass water in their own kingdom. That's why Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is speeding up the days, like it says in Matthew chapter 24, because if not, that's second death for wanting to stay in this kingdom so bad. Because the 2/3 of our people, they're not clocked out of this kingdom, out of this world. They're still locked in. They're chasing the bag, worried about the NBA finals and this and that, things that don't pertain to salvation. So when all hell starts breaking loose, it's going to be shown who the elect of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai are. This is Ezekiel chapter 9 and verse 4. And the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And that's what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai ultimately is already doing by putting that mark, which is in the Hebrew Tawa, which means the mark of exemption. The elect, the remnant, they're already having that mark of exemption being set up on them. But it's going to be made evident, it's going to be shown who his elect are by when all hell starts breaking loose. The Lord is going to keep, he's going to deliver, he's going to feed, he's going to provide provisions for the elect. But the rest of these 2/3 that aren't signing, crying, they're okay with being in Babylon the Great. They're okay with Esau, Edom ruling. They're okay with Esau implementing the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast. They're okay with these things. So they're not gonna have that tawa, that mark of exemption. They're gonna take the other mark. They're gonna take the mark in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16, which is the mark of the beast, the RFID microchip. And that's gonna be the contrast between the elect of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua and the 2/3. Because you're gonna see who the 2/3 are when Jacob's trouble kicks off, when World War III happens, and ultimately during the hour of temptation down to judge the 2/3, to set up the kingdom of heaven upon the planet Earth, to send Yahweh Shai back. Only the remnant are doing that because these 2/3, they're winking at wickedness. You know, they're okay with democracy, and they're okay with being constantly taxed to death, eating GMO foods. They're okay with black culture. They're okay with Esau Edom putting foreign juice, you know, that's gonna kill you later down the line. They're okay with these things, and that's why Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to delete majority of our people. It says, verse 5, Ezekiel 9 and 5, and he said in my hearing, go after him through the city and smite. Let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity. So Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is not going to have pity on these 2/3 Israelites. He's not going to have pity on these heathens because this is all they know. They're okay with this current world. They're okay with AI data centers being set up. They're okay with just wickedness running loose around the world. And in verse 28, because you got these Jakes proclaiming, oh yeah, I'm an Israelite, the fringes, out of Babylon the Great, out of America, out of this captivity. But what does Jake do to 2/3? You know, they talk shit, they talk smack, they talk down on the true man of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, the true prophets. So really, they're not with the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. They're okay with America, Babylon the Great continuing on forever. But it says, verse 18, when you see thieves, you approve of them, and you spend your time with adulterers. Yeah, because these other camps that are proclaiming to be in the truth, proclaiming to worship Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, some are even calling upon the true names. They're not calling out all the wickedness that Esau Edom is doing, that he's about to establish his new world order, that he's about to bring in that great reset, that a time like no other, Jacob's trouble, it's right around the corner, it's knocking at the door, that the famine of hearing his word, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is just about up. But yet these Jakes, they're not calling out all these things. It says, verse 19, your mouth is filled with wickedness, and your tongue is full of lies. Yeah, Esau Edom, you know, first and foremost, his words are smooth like butter, but also those who are following after his vibration, which are the 2/3 of our people, or the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true Israelites, and these heathens, following under that vibration of Satan. And who's his physical counterpart? The self-proclaimed white man, Esau Edom. You know, pushing those lies that it's, you know, it's, wickedness is okay. You know, America's okay. You know, don't worry about it. You know, don't worry about being taxed to death. Don't worry about Esau Edom about to implement this RFID microchip, this mark of the beast. So that's why the Lord is going to delete majority of our people then into this world. This is Proverbs 17 and 15. He that justifieth the wicked and he that condemneth the just, even they both are abomination to the Lord Yahweh Bashim El Shai. So the 2/3 of our people, they justify this wickedness is going on. They're okay with black culture. They're okay with Esau, Edom, taking everything away. You shall own nothing and be happy. They're okay with these things because they're not calling out to Yahweh Bashim El Shai to put a stop to Esau, Edom, to bring them down, to establish the throne of David, the kingdom of heaven. So that's why the Lord is going to delete these heathens. He's going to bring Esau, Edom down, but also he's going to judge the 2/3 of our people. This is Zephaniah chapter 1. All you to have and come follow me. The majority of our people, they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to leave this world behind to follow after Yahweh Shai. To serve him in truth and sincerity. It says, verse 14, the great day of the Lord, Yahweh Bashim El Shai, it is near and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. Yeah, because Jacob's trouble is knocking at the door. All hell's about to break loose. They're talking about the power outages, blackouts. If that happens here in America's, it's already done. But if that happens, it's wraps. Because America relies on electricity, transportation, oil. You got Trump talking about they're going to hit Iran very hard tonight. So we're in those times where this regular day-to-day life used to live in, it's about to all change at a blink of an eye. It's going to change overnight. People are going to wake up one day, bank accounts wiped out, wondering what happened. Well, Yahweh Bashim El Shai was warning so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But what was our people doing? Comfortable as all hell. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 9 and verse 7. And everyone, I'll butcher it. Because the elect, they're showing their faith by the works that they're doing. But ultimately we know that they're not going to be justified by their works. But they're still trying. They're the only ones trying of the nation of Israel that are trying to draw nigh to Yahweh the Heavenly Father through the only begotten Son. This is James chapter 2 and verse 18. Yet a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Shew me thy faith without thy works, and I will shew thee my faith by my works. And how are you showing your works? First and foremost, the prophets, the teachers, pushing this word out on the highways and byways diligently in truth and sincerity, and also pushing out. And then you have the believers, the helps that are fulfilling their lot, to the best of their ability. The believers that are taking heed to the warning, but that's only the elect and the remnant. Because you got a lot of Israelites that know that they're Israelites, but they're not really showing their faith. They're not, sighing and crying to Yahweh Bashim El Shai. They're not waiting upon the salvation because they don't believe that great calamity, Jacob's trouble, is going to come. So that's why the Lord is not going to deliver majority of our people. Jump back, 2nd Ezra chapter 9 and verse 8 or 7 again. And everyone that shall be predestination, that the elect and the remnant ultimately have already been elected, before the foundations of the earth, before the earth was formed. Because that's the will of Yahweh Bashim El Shai. It's going to be evident actually with the will of Yahweh Bashim El Shai, who's really against it, which is the 2/3 of our people. They're not really for the will of the Lord. They're not ready to get the hell up out of captivity, because they don't even think that they're in captivity. But the elect and the remnant, they're ready to get the hell up out of here. And that's why Yahweh Bashim El Shai is ultimately going to deliver only the remnant and the elect on his side. Those who are eagerly waiting, to get the hell up out of this captivity, out of this slavery, to bring Esau, Edom down, to establish the kingdom of heaven.